What can modern music learn from old hymns? That is what we are going to find out in this review of Kvit by Heidre. Now, the moment I heard the first note of the first song that I heard from this band, I knew I had to have it. The first song that I heard was a Christmas song written by some priest of some sort. He had artistic interests from a young age, and he used those talents to write poems and to write Christmas hymns and to write all this kind of stuff. This is a collection of absolutely beautiful melodies and songs and verses and rhythms and patterns and notes and just the whole package. It really seems like these songs write themselves. And with that being said, that's exactly what you want with an album like this. The charm is mostly in how old these songs are, and the melodies that come with them are nuanced and sophisticated and pleasing to the ear all at once. Now, there's a rich history here with all of these songs. Some of them, well, most of them are 100 to 200 years old. There's some that are older than that. One comes from at least the 13th century, and there's some that are so old that nobody knows who the copywriter is. They just happen to be passed. It just happens to be passed along from generation to generation to generation. Also, some of these hymns are very, very long. I'm talking like 11 verses for the entire song. So in some of these, they had to sort of pick which verses they wanted to use. Now, sometimes these hymns the lyrics are written by one person, and then another person writes a melody, and then sometimes even after the melody is done, then the song gets transferred to another language, maybe possibly traveling to the US with the same melody, or these melodies can be used for different songs. Some of these melodies do sound a little bit familiar, sort of like the hymns that I already know that I just can't place off the top of my head. I would have to really dig to try and find how I know these melodies, but they seem like they're way back in the back of my brain that I already know these, and it's just phenomenal experience to partake in. Like I said, there's a deep history with each one of these songs, and each one of these songs is really, really special. There's a reason that the band members chose to pick these particular psalms. Well, they call them psalms, they're hymns, but sometimes they're interchanged with being called psalms. And I want to say they did a really good job of hitting different topical areas in terms of what the lyrics are about. Now, of course, as you know, I have to know the lyrics to the music that I'm reviewing, and none of these songs are in English. So I had to have them translated for me, which was beyond amazing for them to do that for me, to translate these, and especially when some of these words are old words that there's hard to find the right definition for some of these words in the English language because these are just really old words. I would say in these hymns are some of the most rich melodies I have heard in a very long time. They're complex, they're layered, they're not obvious, and they ring off the tongue. I mean, there's just so much about them that I love. This is definitely going to be a contender for album of the year for me. Now, in light of discovering this music, I contacted the band and asked if they could translate the lyrics for me, or I kind of forgot how that conversation started, but I ended up talking to the bassist of the band, and I ended up having a days-long conversation with this guy. He's a really good guy, and I got to learn some things about the band. So here are some things that I learned about the band. Well, the band is made up of a vocalist, a pianist, a guitar/synth player, a bassist, and a drummer. And furthermore, all of these musicians have different backgrounds a little bit. They all listen to different genres of music, and they all have their own particular flair and what they like particularly. So let's start with the vocalist. Now, the vocalist has been singing in choir or something like that for the majority of their life, as I believe. I believe originally they started getting guitar lessons, and the guitar lesson teacher found out that they had a voice, and so they decided to work on the vocals since that seemed to be a more natural gifting for them. The singing in this album is absolutely stunning. It's effortless, it's beautiful, it's poised. It's just, everything about it is just amazing in the vocals. The vocalist as a child was in choir, and then when they were in their youth, they started to take up guitar lessons. Well, they found out that she had a really good voice, so they just decided to train that aspect of her instead of the guitar playing. So the lyricist listens to pop music, rock and roll, folk music, and a little bit of country and metal. Now, the guitarist, who is married to the vocalist, is really big into metal, death metal, black metal, thrash metal, heavy metal, metalhead all the way. And he apparently was exposed to metal at an early age, and he fell in love with it, and he started playing on his own, playing guitar on his own, and he's kind of self-taught that way. So that's pretty cool. The pianist is classically trained. They grew up playing piano. The pianist likes classical music, movie music, rock, folk, hymns, symphonic metal, jazz, some pop music, and so they're very antiquated with a lot of different genres. The drummer started listening to heavy metal at the age of 15. They are really into power metal, and they've been fascinated with drumming for pretty much the rest of their life. They've been doing this on and off. I think they were calling it quits for a while, and then they got back into it, and then decided they wanted to do something with it. The bassist is also self-taught bassist. I believe they have an offer for some other type of band or something like that, and they're deciding if they want to do it or not. They listen to a lot of different stuff. The bassist likes a lot of older music, the classics, and some metal, some really good sounding metal, complex stuff. So that's what the bassist likes. Alright, now let's see what we can do with the categories, shall we? Now for the rhythm in relation to the notes played, this is a really good showing here. The notes are rich and complex. The rhythms are endearing and heartfelt, and they show a lot of passion. The vocalist does a great job of delivering the correct volume of vocalization whenever they are at it, and the rest of the musicians seems like the rhythms really play the song out by themselves. Because these are so old, there's so much ingrained into the artists that it just seeps into their being, and these rhythms come out fantastically. So overall, I'm going to give that a 1.9. Now, as far as the notes are concerned in relation to the rich and complex, this is another category that they do a great job. Everything sounds really smooth. Everything sounds, there's these beautiful, rich melodies that are this series of lines that are sort of repeated. The same melody is repeated over and over. That's what a hymn is, right? So it took me a long time to really realize that, though, for whatever reason. It's like it just sounded foreign to me, and I think one of the reasons for that is because it was in a foreign language. It wasn't until I actually sat down and tried to follow along with the English translation along with the lyrics that, oh, it clicked for me. Like, yes, there's a melody here, and it's really quite rich and complex, and it kind of repeats itself over and over, and it doesn't detract it at all away from the greatness of these songs, because they're just so delivered so well. Every single musician puts in their own spin on it, and it really creates something beautiful. So for this, I'm also going to rate it at a perfect score, a 2.0. Now, as far as the rich and complex is in association with the composition, this is another area that I think they did superb at. There's really not a whole lot I can see that's wrong with it. Everything seems to just flow beautifully. The richness and the complexity of the music really goes along well with the composition, and it's like this advanced sort of thing that you have to try and decipher, and I really like that. And it's so tasteful because it sounds so pleasant to the ears. It's just amazing. So for this, I'm also going to give it a perfect 2.0. Now, as far as the composition is concerned, in light of the listenability of this, it's kind of hard to say whether it's listenability or atmosphere, I want to say. And I think one of the reasons for that is there's a lot going on underneath. There's a lot of synth work. The way the guy plays the guitar is kind of he plays the guitar sort of like it's a synth. And what I mean by that is he's trying to create sounds. He's not trying to create chords, if that makes sense. He's not trying to, burn up the fretboard with playing a bunch of, fret burning things. So in that regard, it sounds really, really smooth in a way that the way the guitarist plays reminds me a little bit of My Epic. Now, I haven't reviewed My Epic because I sort of felt like that didn't really fit my channel very well, but that's another contender that I have very highly rated for EP of the year, just in case you wanted to know that. Now, as far as the bass is concerned, you really get a sense of the talent of this bassist when you hear the opening lines of the bass in the first song. And so from that, you can decipher that for the rest of the album, that the bassist really knows what they're doing, and they play great. The pianist plays adequate softness to their playing. They don't overburden things with a pounding on the piano. It sounds soft and really adds some atmosphere or listenability to the music there. Now, the drumming is especially unique, I feel like, in this release, because not only do the drums go super fast, but they're not pounding on the drums. That's one thing I really like about this particular release, is that all the musicians are displaying their talents super smoothly, and they're not forcing anything. They're not trying to press anything. They're just playing what is required of them. And the drumming is often very fast paced, but it still sounds great. It doesn't feel like it's out of place at all, in line with the other stuff in White that it's a hymn. It sounds great. Even though the drummer is playing some really fast stuff, it still sounds great. So as far as the composition is concerned, in light of the listenability or ambience, I can't really tell which one I want to go off of. Maybe I'll pick at some point, but at this point I can't choose, and it's not going to really affect anything. I'm going to put this again at a strong 1.8. Now finally, as the listenability or ambience is concerned in light of the rhythms, this is another category that I think they get almost perfect. It's so hard to detract from anything that these guys really do, because I just feel like everything they do is just so great, and it just sounds so appealing to the ear. I will say, however, if I was going to rate it based on listenability compared to the rhythm, it would be docked a little bit, and this is only because it wouldn't be quite complex enough, and that doesn't really feel right because it is complex. But at the same time, if I put it at ambience, then I feel like I'm shorting the listenability of it. So it's a hard place for me to be. I'm going to end up rating it at a 1.9. So there you have it, guys. This album is giving Skald and Diem really a run for its money. This is going to bring it up to a 9.6 out of 10. Well guys, that's going to do it for this review. That was my review of Kvit by Heidre. Thanks for watching. Until next time.